All right, guys, welcome to the podcast. Today we've got Tyler Smith Sr. with us today, and we're going to talk about real estate, how to buy a house, when to buy a house, how to sell a house, and how to maximize your profits. So enjoy the show and stick around. Welcome to our show. So, Tyler, you're in real estate,
Yes.
And are you mainly a buying agent or a selling agent?
I think moving to Idaho and starting fresh, even though I've been in the industry for 8 years, in 2022 being really my first year, full year at Boise Premier, you kind of have to start fresh. So that kind of puts you in the hole of a buyer agent, just because you haven't met everyone yet. Mm-hmm. But then fast forward to today and this year here in 2024, I'm probably like 60-40 now. So I am doing more in the listing space, which is a space I'm super comfortable in. So
nice. Yeah, I was just going to ask, do you have a preference as to buying versus selling?
I think there's pros and cons to both. I think as a buyer's agent, you're like their hero. So I look at myself when I'm a buyer's agent that I am their navigator to the market, because in Idaho you're getting a lot of relocation. So you have to know the pockets where everything is. Selling side is a different game. So for them, I am their financial advisor and helping them get the most money for their home with as least stress as possible.
Nice. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, is Idaho still one of the fastest growing states, or has it moved to Texas and Florida?
I'd say Idaho, no matter what, is consistently top 10 all day long.
Yeah, that makes sense.
All day long.
Yeah. Have you been getting a lot of people from, or I guess has the real estate space been getting a lot of people coming to Idaho for the Microchip Center?
So actually what's interesting you bring that up. So I have investors. I work a lot with 1031 exchange companies, super familiar with that. So like people will want to be moving their money out of California due to a new thing called a California Clawback.
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
So that basically is the government saying that, hey, even if you do a 1031, whenever that property sells in the future, let's say you move your money from your investment property here in California to Idaho, mm-hmm. You love it. Like you and your wife are doing great with that investment. It's doing great for the next 15 years, and then you go to sell it. California's saying like they want a piece of the action.
Really?
Still, even after all those years. Now, the timeline's not technically 15 years, but it's complicated. So there's a lot of investors looking to move their money out, and then I'm helping them with that to avoid,
Yeah, wow. So there's a lot of people that are buying investment properties then here in Idaho.
Yes.
Just switching. Huh.
Yeah, because even if you 1031 exchange, it's like the California tax still wants to follow you all the years of your life.
That's crazy. Yeah. So are they taxed just on the capital gains of when they sell the property or on the revenue?
Yeah. So based on the increased value, so let's say it's the capital gains of when they sell, that's recorded in a way. And so the way a California clawback would work is that money, they want to recoup it at some time. So even though you don't pay any taxes, it's just, think of it as like, it's just, they're reminded of it. They know it.
Okay.
So if you need to file a specific form every year in the state of Idaho so that these guys don't throw the clawback on you.
Wow.
And that form can be given through a CPA that I work with. But this is like really diving into the weeds of that. But if you guys have questions on that, please reach out.
Yeah, wow, that's interesting. I actually haven't heard of those details, so I didn't know that. That's crazy. No wonder they're moving to Idaho.
Yeah. Get your money out, dude.
Seriously. Man,
Yeah.
So what kind of property are they buying here mainly?
So I have an investor right now that's bought, this year has already just bought 2 properties with me over by Micron.
Okay.
Because Micron's supposed to add like thousands and thousands of jobs. That's already been kind of forecasted. I heard it somewhere around like 8,000.
Wow.
Locally, I'm not sure on the exact number. But that being said, if you look at on a map where Micron is there's like literally one neighborhood pocket, maybe 2.
Yeah, like Columbia Village.
Dude, and it's crazy. Yeah. The rents you get in there are exceptionally high for the value that you purchased the property for.
Wow.
And the best part is when you have a rental, you're always looking at, well, what is the vacancy rate? Mm-hmm. Dude, there's no vacancy here.
Really?
Because you always have a demand.
Yeah.
So from an out-of-state investor or someone that just wants to have low management, great investment.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh, that's crazy. Yeah, I can see how that's like better than college town. There are people that have money and need a place to live.
It's a guarantee.
That's crazy.
Yeah, you're going to get it rented.
Yeah. Wow, that's cool. That makes sense. Those people are smart for sure.
Yeah.
Yep. And then as far as like other people that you see buying in the area, are that are relocating from other areas, what kind of houses are they buying typically? Is it all over the spectrum or kind of more of a...
I think it just depends who you're getting. I feel like a lot of my network is more like Meridian, Star, Eagle, probably 70% Eagle.
Okay.
So, the median house price right now is about like $890 in Eagle. So I have a higher end price point because that's my niche. Like I live there personally. Okay. I understand the subdivisions. And so like when I meet with a buyer, so it's just like if you and your wife are moving here, I would understand what's your life like. Are you indoor or are you outdoor? Yeah. Based on the beard, you're probably outdoor, right?
Outdoor, yeah, all the way.
So really like you don't need the massive house, but the location to fishing, hunting, access bike parks, things like that are going to be a greater value to you. So then I'm going to guide you down those lanes. If you're more of like a family that's going to struggle in the cold because you're true Californians, you might need bigger living square footage because you're going to really need to enjoy your house during those cold months.
That makes sense. Yeah, it's a good strategy. Sounds like you can guide them well.
Dude, I'm the home matchmaker,
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. Good way to see it. Yeah. Nice. So, and then when it comes to buyers, like what's their motive to sell usually?
When it comes
to sellers, yeah.
So sellers are in a difficult season right now. And so what's interesting with the market is this. We saw interest rates climb and every buyer's perception, especially millennials, was that, hey, like we're finally going to get to buy because prices are going to come down. But they didn't. Yeah. And the reason they didn't is because of exactly that. Rates went high. Now, when rates go high, it usually means prices comes down because affordability is less. Right? So they don't have as much buying power when rates are high. So what actually happened instead is it did the opposite because the people that would be selling can't upgrade because of the same reason. Rates are high, prices went high, stayed high, never came down. So this seller that would have had a house on the market can't sell. So the number one thing that actually drives home prices isn't rates, it's actually supply and demand curves, like an economics class. You need more supply, and we just don't have it.
That makes sense, yeah. So for somebody who is selling, like, how can they better their odds, I guess, to win?
Well, if you're selling or thinking about selling, sell right now.
Oh, yeah.
Don't wait till October where everyone's going to wait and see with the election, okay? Number two, in the last 15 days to 30 days, I've seen the biggest uptick in inventory I've seen in a long time.
Really?
Yeah, and that's weird. Yeah. Like it was a weird jump. So I'm still watching that. It's just something that happened very recently. Like literally, I've noticed that this week. So just being mindful of that. And as a seller, you want to come on the market when the inventory is not high, right? Right. If you're the only house in this neighborhood and this is what the product I want is, then I'm the guy. Right. Like I got to pay for that. But when there's multiple and you're putting them against each other, then the buyer starts to gain that advantage. Right now, the seller still has the advantage, but that could change overnight as we approach an election year. Who knows?
Yeah, that makes sense. So mainly, you would recommend selling right now just because the inventory is increasing?
I mean, no one has a crystal ball, right? If you look at the Fed, they announced at the beginning of the year that we'd see 3 rate drops. Yeah. We've actually seen the opposite. We've seen like 3 rate increases. Right. So what's been wild with this is what was expected didn't happen. Even though it was promised to us, it didn't happen. That's because inflation stayed high. We can't justify the rate drop. So due to that, it's like this awkward medium. Because if you were a seller and I had a crystal ball, I'd say the best time to sell is when the rates do drop. Because then you're going to have a frenzy and the inventory can't back it. You're going to get stupid amounts of offers. But because that hasn't happened, it's kind of like, I'd say we're almost like in a fair playing field. It's a great time for both because buyers can take their time to shop. There's not pressure. There's not a ton of multiple offers. And then sellers have to be a little more patient with average 30 days of market.
30 days?
On average.
Yeah, that's still pretty quick.
It is. I mean, well, that's just depending. You still 60 to sell, right?
That makes sense, yeah. But that's crazy. I thought it would have been higher still, but yeah. So as far as like, I guess with new houses, they're popping up all over the place. Yeah. I was looking at like Corey Barton, they're a local builder. They have it's like 1,500 homes going in the next 6 months. Yeah. And so they're popping them out left and right. And does that affect the pre-existing home market much as far as like selling?
If you own a Corey Barton home next to a subdivision that's new Corey Barton homes, and you're trying to get the same price as the new homes, you're not going to get it.
Right. That makes perfect sense.
So in a way, the builder you buy from is essentially the builder you compete with.
That makes sense.
And so think about it like that, because if I buy from, a perfect example is like James Clyde, he's super stubborn to lower his prices. So the difficulty for me as a buyer is that I have to spend more to get in, but once I get in, he's not dropping, which helps me on the resale because they're going to have to pay a premium for new. Right. So resale might be a great move. Offer, and it keeps the brand valued higher, right? Whereas like a CBH, you have all this variety. He also has to be super strategic with how he builds, because he could even build his own competition within himself.
That makes sense. Yeah. And he's got so much control that...
He's a genius, though. If you want to watch like the Boise market, just watch him as a builder.
That makes sense, yeah. Yeah, in a few months, well, it's been about a year and a half now, but he laid off like all of his tradesmen.
Yep.
But now back full-fledged. And Toll Brothers did something similar to where they stopped building, but they did keep their subs.
Yeah.
And so mainly because they knew that when the market got good, they were going to need them and wouldn't be able to find them. So
right.
Yeah, Toll Brothers is probably my favorite like track home builder. I don't like track homes, but if I had to pick a favorite, it'd be to them.
They offer like the most variety.
Yeah.
Toll's great. I like Tresidio too, because you can go spec home, but then you can do more structural changes. You have more liberties.
Nice.
And then same with Toll.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, right on. So as far as like, I guess back to somebody selling, say you have an older home and you want top dollar for it. Say you've lived there for 30 or 15 years, I guess. And you want top dollar for it, what are some things that people in that situation can do? It's
tough, right? So 15 years, let's break this down. So the average median home price in Ada County is about $465,000. So if you open a search in Ada County now and you're looking for homes in Meridian under $400,000 that are active, I think that aren't new.
Oh yeah.
I think you're getting like 10, which is depressing.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my point with this like whole inventory thing. Now, in your question, let's say like that person bought a home, and based on where it's at, it's 15 years old, so it's dated. Roof probably has enough life left in it. Maybe the HVAC, water heater, those need to be replaced, but something that the buyer's going to catch more hold on to during the walkthrough, unless they have a savvy agent, like the inspection part. So really what you want to do is generate as much offers as you can. As a seller, there's two ways to get full price. Number one is to have the perfect buyer come in that really wants it.
Okay.
And then number two is to have multiple buyers that want it.
Okay.
Because fear of loss will generate the full price offer and or higher.
That makes
I always tell
sense.
my seller, like, we want as many offers as possible. Let's say someone's going to lowball you 20 grand. A lot of agents will shoot themselves in the foot being like, we'll never accept that. I do the opposite. I'm like, yeah, bring that offer. Thank you for your offer, sir. Appreciate that. Because now I got one offer to parlay another offer.
Yeah.
Anyway, so with that house.
That's smart.
I know, man. So with that house is this. So the house is 15 years old. So the number one feature that a homeowner can put money into is the kitchen.
Okay.
And the reason is because the kitchen is always going to be a focal point of today's market. The kitchen and the living room, because where you live is what you care about.
Yeah.
So in essence, that house will definitely need some renovations.
Okay.
And we talked earlier about this. So let's say the house could sell as is for $400,000. If that same seller were to invest $12,000 and in a 150 square foot kitchen do new quartz countertops, new cabinets, do new tile backsplash, and luxury vinyl plank flooring, which would make everything new, and then add paint on top of it in the interior, the whole space is going to be entirely transformed for anywhere from $12,000 to $15,000. I mean, you're the expert on that.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, that's accurate numbers for sure.
So that actually would value the property probably closer to $450,000 of a sales price.
Okay.
So when a buyer's looking at prices, they're looking at a range. I don't want to see any homes above $450,000. I don't want to see any homes above $400,000 because that's what I'm approved for.
Okay.
So it's like if I'm at $415,000, I might as well have been at $399 just to get more offers.
Yeah.
But at this point, we've made a 4 go to a $450 all day long, and we're going to be comfortable at $450 because buyers now with higher rates will use all their money on their down payment.
Okay.
So they don't have room for renovations after the purchase.
Right.
So to have a house done and buttoned up is exactly what they want. And if we know that resale's biggest competitor is new, we have to come in like a new construction. So doing that plus professional staging, you'll knock it out of the park for 15 grand or less.
Okay.
And you're going to make, $35,000 more after you sell.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I guess by doing all that, like say the kitchen is the most important thing, like focal point wise, and would it help them to sell faster if they did something like that?
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you're selling to investors or someone that's going to buy the house, like if you're going into a house with the flip mindset, like you're going to sell it for sure, do the kitchen. If you're going to keep the house and make it a rental, do the kitchen.
Gotcha.
Especially if you own it 15 years, you're already paid off a lot of that interest, which is in the front 10 years of a home product. So in that mortgage, you want to keep that asset because now you're really hitting that principal balance, paying down the home, giving yourself more equity to borrow HELOCs, and basically create your own bank in the future. So you want to do the kitchen, but the difference is going to be if it's for a renter, you're going to want utility clean new.
Okay.
With a person that's going to buy, you're going to have to spend a little more money because you need a little more pizzazz. It's not full utility.
Right.
It's going to be like looks and aesthetics too.
Interesting. Yeah, that makes sense. So what if, like, say you have a house and it was built in the 60s and the kitchen it's outdated but functional, but the yard is like just trashed. Would you delegate that money anywhere else, or would you always just stick to the kitchen?
Am I renting it or am I selling it?
Selling it.
So if I'm selling it, you got to spend money on the yard, but that's a low barrier to entry because a person's emotions when they get out of the car and see the house, that is important.
Okay.
If it's crap outside, they're going to feel negative and be expectant of other negatives.
Yeah, that makes sense.
If it's beautiful outside, it'll be a surprise, positive, and they will be surprised about how well kept it is on the inside.
Nice.
I like to keep that emotional flow because buyers don't buy off logic, they buy off emotion.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense. Yeah, nice. So yeah, I mean that seems like a really good strategy to really, I mean, you're just packaging it in a different way basically. So,
sales is packaging.
Yeah,
100%.
yeah, that's cool. I agree with that. I just read something this morning about that. But anyways, yeah. So as far as like the real estate market goes, and for like somebody who is looking to buy for their first time,
Yeah.
what do you recommend to them for? Say they have 10 grand in the bank for a down payment, which isn't a lot, but it's a lot more than a lot of people have.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So let's go 2 scenarios. Let's say you have 10 grand. That scenario, you're going to want to connect with me.
Okay.
No, you're going to want to utilize our Idaho first-time homebuyer program. That program's set up for people that have about 10 grand in the bank that want to purchase a home, that have a steady job and over a 640 credit score. So what that's going to look like is they're going to reach out to me. I'll connect them with the right people that will approve them for this Idaho fund. What this fund is taxpayers, you and I, and everyone that pays taxes here, it sets up a fund in Idaho. Now, when the fund's out, the money's out. But while the fund exists every year, there's first-time homebuyers that can utilize this fund. And what it is the state of Idaho will actually give you 3% of a down payment. So let's take the example of a $400,000 starter home, right?
Yeah.
In that house, they're going to give you 3% of your down. That's $12,000. So the state gives you that. So as the buyer, you're basically going to go into what's similar to like an FHA loan, which is a 3.5% loan.
Yeah.
So then they're doing 3. What do you got to do?
Half.
That's
crazy.
Half a percentage, which we're talking nothing, right? Yeah. And you do get your closing costs. You do. But like half a percentage on a $400,000 home is just $2,000.
Yeah. Wow.
So you got crazy. 10, right? Well, great, because guess what? Closing costs are going to be anywhere from $7,000 to $8,000.
Really? Wow. So for 10 grand, you really could get into a house.
So for 10 grand, you can get into a house. Now, granted that you can afford the payments.
Right.
Now, the payments are going to be a little painful at first because you're going to have principal, interest, taxes, insurance, and you're going to have PMI, which is property mortgage insurance, right?
Okay, yeah. Or
private mortgage insurance. And what that insurance is for is so that the bank that's lending you the money, because they're fronting, 96.5%, right? Because you're doing just 3.5%.
Yeah.
They're fronting a ton of that asset. So they're making you pay for a third party mortgage insurance so that if you can't make the payments, these guys can step in and the servicer isn't caught high and dry.
That makes sense.
So you as a buyer want to remove that as soon as possible, and the fastest way to remove that is by refinancing your property and getting a 20% loan to value.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I'm going fast here, but this is where that kitchen remodel comes into play. Because as you save that money up, you want to spend money where the money counts. And that's why a kitchen is so important in this feature. Because let's say you bought the house in 2020, you saved money up for 3 years. Now you got about $12,000 to spend. Let's go pour that into the kitchen and the living space, the main living areas. Now that $12,000 investment is going to yield you a $50,000 new value.
Right.
So less the 12. I mean, we're almost talking about like $37,000 you just gained. And for a $400,000 original purchase of that house, we need $80,000 for our PMI to go away.
Right.
Now with the completion of $37,000 of doing this remodel, which we only spent $12,000. You have 37 here, and based on average appreciation over the course of 5 years, you would have already yielded the remainder to get you to $80,000 with the help of that remodel. So at that point, you would do a simple refinance. An appraiser would come out, you'd share with him all the upgrades and everything you do with your house. He would assess the new value, and that would lump you into a new loan to which you don't have PMI.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
That was a lot.
No, it was good.
That's the full formula to doing that.
Right on. But by refinancing, then don't you pay on basically a more expensive house then, the house that's at the new evaluation?
It just depends because you're hoping that they're evaluating it on that new valuation. But they're just reassessing your equity.
Okay.
So you're basically going to get it reappraised.
So you borrow against your equity.
So you can refi. There are scenarios, I guess you could. Yeah, you got to refi.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, that's interesting. So it's kind of a hack in a way. I mean,
it's a hack in the sense because you're not going to take more money. So like you're going to keep your LTV, which is your loan to value. So you bought it at 4, you have 3.5% down with the state and your 0.5, right? And then now it's worth 450. You're not going to take any of that chunk, right?
Right. Yeah.
Or no, that 450 from the time you remodel. So by the time that you're doing the refi, it needs to be worth at least an 80,000 gap. But you're not taking any of that money.
Yeah, to make it worth it.
Right.
So,
and we've seen greater appreciation anyway.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. And that would really only work if you bought an older house that needed a little bit of work. Basically, you couldn't do that on a new house.
It's tough because like when people look at resale, I always focus on other things versus the cosmetic because their biggest expenses is going to hit them in their capital expenditures, which is like your roof, your HVAC, your furnace, water heater.
That makes sense.
Those are big ticket items, and you need to know the average expiration of those items so that you can know in your head, okay, well, I'm already going to get hit with this big ticket number at this point in time.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Especially, I don't know, some of those things, they do have an expiration date. They won't last forever, especially nowadays. A furnace will only last about 10 years, and same with, all appliances. And then, so they can come back to get you for sure.
Oh, yeah. And it's like your car, has it been maintained?
Right.
If not, it's going to have a quicker expiration date.
Yeah. So, nice. And then, so there's the Idaho fund, and then there's the FHA loan, and you basically combine the two to get that deal to work.
Right. And then there's one other product to go over, which is, and I'm not a lender by any means, so you want to verify this with the lender. I need to say that always.
Yeah.
But there's also a 203K FHA loan. Have you heard of that?
No, I haven't. That one.
So this is a perfect deal that would be great to partner with you on. And it's if I'm working with the Joneses and they see this house and it's in the right community, but it's dated, and so they want to change the kitchen. Now the house is listed for $400,000. We're going to write our offer for $400,000 and get it into escrow. But on the back end, the loan that we want to get is called a 203K loan. Now, it's an FHA 203K loan. So originally, our down payment, so this is great for people with a lower cash fund.
Okay.
Because you can still do a 3.5% down payment. But the 203K loan will assess the after renovation value.
Interesting.
So then what me and the Joneses would do is we'd say, all right, this is our house. We are going to do a 203K loan. Let's figure out how much it costs to do new flooring through the kitchen and living room, quartz countertops, white cabinets, little tile backsplash, and finish it with some paint all throughout the interior, fresh paint. and let's get a bid for that, right? So let's say that bid comes out to like $17,000 because we're also going to replace the carpet in the bedrooms and stuff like that. What we would then do is we'd get you'd go to the property that's in escrow, give us the bid, we present that bid back to the lender. The lender would call an appraiser out to make sure that the evaluation of the home is at least $417,000.
Okay.
Because that's what we're going to be spending based on our bid. And the benefit with that is if you're working with a savvy agent that understands appreciation in separate neighborhoods, making sure you're buying the deal of the week, right? And then after you use this loan, we're going to recoup a ton of value. Up to 450, 465 after this is all done, maybe even 475 because you're doing the rooms too now.
Interesting.
It's basically a whole new house.
Yeah.
That gets funded and recorded. You close on the house right after. The bank's financing your entire remodel.
Okay.
You've lumped it into your 30-year fixed mortgage, but $15,000 at a 7% in a 30 fixed mortgage, I mean, that's only going to raise your payment like $150, $200 on your payment, which is nothing. You got a literal new house. And then you also have instant equity. Positioned for a future refi, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So if you did it that way, would it be two separate loans then lumped into one, or?
Well, it's like actually the product.
Really?
Like it's a 2 or 3K loan, so it's almost like they are giving you the full loan.
Gotcha.
Out of the gates because they got to start work.
Yeah. Okay.
So they're gonna fund your bids. That's why it has to be bids from licensed Idaho general contractors and like people that are reputable. But if the bank approves all this, then you're good to go.
Wow.
Now the liability is a little higher, so you're not getting the same, prime rates potentially. Yeah. But the value is killer once it's all completed. You're in a power position, and that's great for someone that does need to make those renovations.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, so I guess if somebody was going to do that, would they just talk to their escrow company about that, or?
You got to set it up through a lender for sure. Because also I'm not sure if every lender offers that product.
Gotcha.
So like there's brokers and then there's lending institutions, right? So there's banks and brokers, and these brokers can actually go anywhere and find it. So maybe they are more advantageous because you could it's almost like an insurance broker. You can go to State Farm and Travelers and Safeco and figure out who's got the best deal of a 203K loan for your client.
Right.
That's kind of where like maybe a mortgage broker is a great asset.
Gotcha.
If you're looking for that type of product.
That makes sense. Nice. I guess now that we're on the topic of mortgages, have you seen like different advantages to get better rates on mortgages? Yeah,
so I always am telling my clients, like, even though the prime rates are like at 7%, if you're borrowing like $400,000 to $500,000, I always like to get at least $15,000 of incentives. That's why working with builders is so crucial, because builders are the quickest to offer like an incentive, whereas resale maybe not, because they've already done the dining table conversation. They've already thought this is what my house is selling for.
Yeah.
But a builder's less emotionally attached. They're just numbers based. So if you as a client are buying a house and you get $15,000 of a credit from the builder, sometimes I can parlay that with a lender credit. Some of the lenders I work with in the Valley will give buyers credits for new builds too. And so what we can do is if we can push all this money together and then use that to buy down the rate, that's advantageous for the buyer.
That makes sense, yeah. So you basically take the credit to buy down the rate.
Yes.
Okay, just make sure I understood. That makes sense. Nice.
Now there's two ways to buy down the rate. You can do a short-term buy down or a long-term buy down. Long-term buy down is stretched out over 30 months.
Okay.
Short-term buy down will be stretched out over, there's a 1-2 buy down, which is year 1, year 2. And then there's a 3-2-1 buy down. Sorry, there's a 2-1 buy down and a 3-2-1 buy down. And the 3-2-1's over 3 years, but you need a little more than probably 15. You might need north of like $20,000 of a credit to utilize that. But it's huge because let's say rates are at 7, you're going to buy this house, you and your wife, right? And I'm like, here's the deal. If I can get the builder to give, 15, I can probably get a little bit from the lender, and maybe even like finding ways to negotiate a little bit more money in there, or you bring the additional $2,000 or whatever it is, we can get that rate down 3% the first year.
Okay.
So year 1's $4,000, year 2's 5,000, year 3, 6,000, and then year 4 to year 30, we locked it back here at the beginning of this process. It's not adjustable.
Okay.
So it's a fixed mortgage, which is at that 7%. So you know what the worst case looks like in the future.
Right.
So this gives you 3 years of planning and potential of refinancing and all this stuff to move forward with a better outcome.
That makes sense. Yeah. And if the mortgage rates come down then refinance.
Refinance that sucker, right?
Nice. That's pretty cool. Have you heard much about, like, this is just my own thoughts, I guess, kind of changing topics a little bit, but for builders, obviously they have to have a lot to build on. And lots right now are crazy expensive. Have you had to deal with that at all? Like, do you sell lots at all?
I started in selling land. I mean, it seems like a lot of agents there's some big agents in the valley that do well because they go and find land, get a price for it. They understand things like density, lot splits, stuff like that. And then they will get it under contract, purchase it, whatever, and partner that with the builder.
Okay.
And then that utilizes, the builder's glad to have that because they're getting lots at a great price in a great area. And so then the thank you back to the agent is they get to be the listing agent for all the properties, right?
Okay.
So it builds a brand on working with new construction. It's a great way to do it if you're an agent. Hard to do. You got to understand densities and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And builders are kind of having to work directly with developers who specialize in that.
Okay.
But then they're subject to the developer, meaning if I'm the developer, what I say goes. If I'm not building with you, tough luck, Chuck. Like, you're not building in my neighborhood.
That makes sense, yeah. Yeah, it seems like it's a real, I don't know, it's kind of really hard for custom builders right now and the smaller guys to be able to find lots that are affordable. Like, I was looking through some the other day and they were like half-acre lots for like $315 to $315, and to turn a profit on that, it's razor thin margins. So yeah.
I know, and that's what's happening. And the thing that buyers or just the public in general doesn't understand is when you're a builder and you purchase the land, you buy the land, it's a land loan, then you do a land draw construction loan, then you have what's called carrying costs, and those costs can actually sink a builder.
Yeah, absolutely.
And put them into peril, right? So you really got to know your numbers. And one of the best things for a builder is to mitigate any liabilities. And one way to do that is to purchase lots that are already pre-split and approved for building permits. And so that you can basically have the lot and go straight to the city, submit those building permits, which takes about a month to 2 months to receive back. You can go ahead and start your build out with a client. Typically we'll see builders take about 10% of a down from a client, giving them the protection that they need to move forward and do a great product. That's kind of the perfect scenario. It's just hard to find.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and it seems like, honestly, any smart builders right now in today's market are only building pre-solds that are, smaller. They're not, anybody like under about 35 million a year should be just doing pre-solds.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're going to
you're exposed.
Yeah, it's worse than going to Vegas, honestly.
And we've seen those guys get exposed, like the luxury high-end, high custom homes. If they're building it for a client, great. If they're not, vulnerable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very vulnerable.
Yeah.
They're banking too much on their agent and marketing and getting this thing sold and not understanding where the demand is for Idaho, because the demand for north of 2 million in Idaho is so low. I mean, 5-10 years ago, we didn't even see $2 million products, right? So we are getting that now, but it's just such a rare buyer that to rest all your family on that is a scary day.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I built a house a few years ago on the foothills, and it was I guess not a few years ago, it was in 2012. But it sold back then for $570, and it just sold a few months ago for $570,000, and it sold a few months ago for I think it was 3.2 million, but it's crazy. So,
that's wild, man.
Yeah, but you don't see a lot of.
Idaho was a special thing, man. We got famous during COVID.
Yeah, no doubt, and it's a beautiful area.
Yeah.
Like, there's something for everybody here, for sure. But,
what do you think about this? Because I want to ask you, I see millennials that want to go and purchase a home prices. So when you want to purchase a home, you're looking at two things, and that's the median household income and you're looking at the average house price. So the median household price and the median household income. If we compare what they were back in the baby boomer generation, we're 80% more of a gap pricier right now. So what I mean by that is it's next to impossible for anyone to get it because we're like 6 times higher than the median household income.
Right.
They actually expect by 2050 that if you're a millennial that doesn't own a home, it'll be 8.3 times higher. So it's a great fact to also say, hey, figure it out.
Right.
Utilize the products we've talked about today. Get in that home because based on what we're doing in the United States, printing money, you need to lock your dollars and freeze them in time on what they were worth here.
Right.
Because where we're depreciating and we're debasing the dollar, it's going to be worth more in the future, right? Those dollars today.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is a huge difference from back then, but it's not impossible. Like,
No.
I think that people just need to be smart about it and strategic. And like you said, you know, use every tool in your tool belt, basically.
100%.
Set yourself up for success in the future. And money, what I've learned about money is that it goes away no matter what. And so if you can save enough to get into a house, save $12,000 or, you know, just $2,000, 10 grand, I guess, after closing fees, like we just talked about, to get into a house, then at least you'll have it and your money will be locked in there because that's an asset that will grow with everything else.
Yes.
But if you don't, then I think people will be starting to get left behind for sure.
They're going to start hurting. And I think one of the special things that still exist in Idaho is you can still find homes that have land that are in a non-HOA area. Now they're rare and harder to find.
Yeah.
But that's why partnering with someone like myself is a great asset and a tool for you because one, you know, with my site and everything, we have the filter to type in searches with no HOA, so you can only see stuff with that, which is a super great advantage. You're not wasting time.
Nice.
But also with the guidelines that changed recently in Idaho, which were whether it's an investment property, which is the newest thing, or a primary residence, you can now build a ADU on both.
Yeah.
Because that changed in December of 2023. So you can now, it used to be you had to own the house to be allowed to build an ADU. And then on top of that, you got to meet the CC&Rs and subdivision requirements, setbacks, and that stuff to even be allowed to do it.
Right.
But now it's like the guidelines are opening up because home affordability is so impossible that we're seeing like more multi-generation. Even big builders like Boise Hunter Homes is adding in a multi-gen living in their floor plans now, offering that to clients. We saw that with Lennar too. So knowing that in the future, I mean, this is how you can kind of plan ahead of like, wow, it'd be great to put my money in an asset that's no HOA because I could basically do a 2-on-1 rental in the future, never having to do lot split, geological surveyor, and all that stuff. You just build 2 homes and have 2 rentals.
Yeah, and that's a huge thing. Like the cost to build something on your own property, you already own the land, and so
that's where I'm going.
Yeah, to build something is really affordable, and if you own the land and are able to. But then you get monthly income, and just darn near if you build a good ADU, you can darn near get half your mortgage back every month just for that. So
as a builder, I want to ask you this too, just because it came to my mind. Would you be interested in looking at land that is in a non-HOA, has an existing house, which you can fix up, right? Do the basics to get the kitchen right. You're the builder.
Right.
So it's your deal.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you could add a secondary rental, which you also can build.
Yeah, I would do something like that because it's...
And then it's covering your costs.
Right.
Because your costs are based on the original mortgage, which is for asset A. Now you're going to have to put more money out there. There are some lenders that will actually fund those products and adding an ADU, things like that. There's another company that builds tiny homes, but like you being a builder, you can do this yourself and finance it so that you have both of these under one roof. But I mean, 2 rentals, I mean, you're going to cash flow.
Yeah. So here's a question. This is kind of a riddle. Could you do like an FHA loan and then the other loan to subsidize a home improvement big enough to build an ADU? Like,
so you have an FHA loan on home A.
Yeah.
And then what are you going to do?
Take out that other loan that, I can't remember the number, the K loan.
203K loan?
203K, yeah. To then build
subsidize an ADU?
Yeah.
It'd be tough because the financing won't want to do that.
Makes sense, yeah.
So that's the trick with this. So the person that would use that would have a down payment.
Okay.
But we're not going to utilize it because we're going to do a construction loan for the ADU, and we need more down for that. So for the original house purchase, you're just keeping your money tight.
Okay.
And the best way to keep it tight is to do it all, which is 0.5%.
Oh yeah.
So then you get home A, and then you have all the money that you haven't yet spent to fund the tiny home.
Okay.
So even though you have mortgage insurance, you don't really give a flip because you have two homes on one property, both rented out.
Right.
If it's no HOA, you can even throw a fence in the middle, and as long as both have ingress, egress to a road and it's all good, you're solid.
Yeah.
Now you'll have to connect the other house and stuff, and as a builder, like what that entails.
Yeah.
But that is the best scenario. It's like if I was a builder, I'm not hiring anyone. That's gold. The other move is partnering with me, or if you even are considering selling a house out there, and you might be someone that has a good sized lot in a non-HOA area, make sure you know the zoning codes and the densities, because you could do a geological survey and do a short plat map for about, you might spend south of $10,000 and be able to subdivide your own lot.
Okay.
And then now you can still, so if we're going to sell, we're going to sell this house and it's all this land and it's like more on this side of the property, and I want to subdivide right here in the middle, I'll subdivide. After the split's done, I will sell this house. Now, I'll have a payoff, which the payoff in the loan was for the original product, right? That'll pay that off. But then I will own property over here free and clear.
That makes sense.
So then I own parcel B free and clear. So then the Joneses moving in this house, their agent's probably not savvy and checking the tax roll to see who still owns this land. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. But these people move in happy, and this might only be worth like, $20,000 more than just this because homes are so rare right now.
Right.
So basically, you keep this. Now you lose $20,000 off this price, but now this dirt is probably worth $150,000. So we just made bank. We just made over $130,000 by keeping this. Not to mention, now you own the land free and clear, so you don't have to bring any money down to finance your construction costs because your down payment's already in the dirt.
Right.
So now we can fund our entire construction build out for parcel B, to which now you have a free, incredible rental property, which is also a great resale down the road.
That makes sense. Yeah. And probably the best place to do this would be in the county, because then you can do your own septic, and it's a lot easier to subdivide out there.
Otherwise, like Meridian's tough. You got to do a public hearing, the whole nine, invite all the neighbors out. Anyone that wants to appeal it, they can, and then there's just a lot of steps.
Yeah. Plus, it's expensive to hook into the city utilities and everything.
Oh, it's a lot.
So.
I mean, that's why I know how to go through it, and I just still rather not.
Oh yeah.
I'd rather not. I can guide people on that journey, and that's where I partner with them. Is like maybe I get the sale or this, but it's like it's a lot of my time because it's a lot to know how to do all that.
Yeah, but that makes perfect sense, and it's you could get out pretty good on one of those.
You could kill it.
Yeah. Nice. That's pretty cool. So do you have any investment properties or anything?
So we have one that's like that. Yeah.
Nice. Right on.
So bought it for like south of 4, converted the unfinished basement, and it was zoned R8.
Nice.
So residential 8 per acre. So then geological survey, do a split, and then our goal is to add a triplex to the back.
Nice.
Which is always hairy.
Yeah.
Because then your neighbors are like, what are you building? You're like, oh, it's a dwelling.
Yeah. Well, what's a dwelling then?
But according to the regulations for the land, it still meets all the requirements.
Okay.
And having like alleyway access or something like that, that's another pro tip for you guys. That's key, because now you can give its own access to the parcel you're trying to create.
Right.
Another pro tip is in areas like Nampa, I believe, and I got to double check, but I believe you can do a short plat map up to like 5 to 7 lots. Meaning you don't get into any subdivision requirements, which is where all the money's spent, developmental requirements.
Okay. Up to 5 to 7
lots.
Yeah. Wow. That would be pretty cool.
That's like buying one house and you can create 6 other homes on it.
So if you bought a big enough piece of property,
split it
you could,
all.
and then build 4 quadplexes or something.
Right.
Yeah. Wow. That'd be pretty sweet.
That'd be sweet. Now the hardest part is the land that you're looking for is probably already owned, and the person probably doesn't know that they can do that.
Yeah.
So you got to find a way to like negotiate a price for them, and the whole time they're going to be wondering, why the hell do you want
Right. Yeah. Why do you want my house? Yeah. So have you ever heard of subject to, buying a house subject to?
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think about it?
I mean, it's great.
Yeah.
It's genius. It's just something that I don't like. Like, it's just so much time for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
So I follow Pace Moby. He's
Yeah.
like the almost a pioneer in it. At least he's the most vocal about it, it seems like.
well, it's great to do if you're the one doing it.
Oh,
For
yeah.
me to guide someone on that journey that is clueless about it, it's
Right.
so much knowledge that I'll have to put into them.
Yeah.
That it's like for the original price, and especially with where commissions are, it's like, yeah, no, it's
Yeah.
not worth my time.
That makes sense. Yeah. And I think that, like, if you're wanting to buy a house subject to it, it has to be your responsibility. Like,
Yeah.
you can't, I guess, rely on somebody else to do it for you, for sure.
Dude, because that legwork is for real, right? You know.
Yeah. And the best, like what Moby does, is he hires somebody to find them deals, or he has a big community
Cold
of
callers.
people. Yeah. But anyways, going and finding those deals is probably the hardest part. But if you have a little bit of money, like, say you got $20K, you can pay somebody $20K to go find the deal, and then they're a wholesaler or a broker,
Yeah.
a real estate. I guess they don't call them a broker, but they're basically a wholesaler. And
They
so,
are, yeah. Meaning they're finding the property, they're writing up the contracts, they're going to get it pending for you, and they're going to check the box that says assignable,
Yeah.
and then they'll assign it to the person that's taking it over. And the
Yeah.
seller's got to be okay with them
Doing that.
signing an assignable contract.
Yeah. But I do think that would be a good way to buy some real estate for
Oh, dude, it's
affordably.
gold.
But
Well, and that's the
Yeah.
other thing too, is like at the end of the day, knowledge is power, and there's so much free content on YouTube. So if you're willing to do that and learn yourself, by all means, that's the best route.
Oh, yeah.
And if you're unwilling to do that, then just be willing to pay for someone that knows how to do it.
right.
But it's nothing's free. It's either time or money.
No doubt. Yeah. And I think that going the subject to route, like, you sacrifice a lot, and it's not really.
Well, I would, because I'd be making
Yeah.
anywhere from 2.5% to 3% on the original price, and it'd
Right.
take all my time away from all my other clients.
Yeah, exactly. Plus, like, the person that's taking over their mortgage and taking over the house, like, that's a huge risk, because that house is going to need a lot of work, guaranteed. If they
100%.
can't pay their mortgage, their house isn't in good shape.
No,
So, yeah.
You're going to need guys.
Yeah, no doubt.
I think my pocket is definitely for the seller that wants to make the most money. And I did this time and time again. I just accomplished this recently in the Two Rivers, and we were able to make the seller, north of like $40,000 more on their
Nice.
house, because we painted 3,800 square feet ceilings and walls.
Wow.
And I replaced all the fixtures and curated a package that would blend better with the house.
Okay.
So updating the paint gives them a new sense of smell. Updating the fixtures gives them a new sense of year built.
Right.
And then adding the best staging by working with professionals that have actually high-end product for a high-end home.
Okay.
Because I'm comfortable in that $1 million and up range, that's going to make buyers come into the property and just be completely blown away that it still exists. And even though you're 40,000 higher than what the market would have originally suggested, they're going to feel like they're getting a deal because it's so renovated.
Yeah, that makes sense. So for those simple facelifts,
Oh yeah.
changes everything.
And I think my clients spent a total of like $9,500.
It's pretty good. What do you think they got for a return on that ROI?
They did get like close to 32,000.
Yeah, pretty good ROI.
It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
And the best part was, all they had to do was just leave the house, and I just ran it basically as a subcontractor for like 2 weeks, meeting all the people on my mafia list that do the work.
Nice.
But it's something that like a person like yourself would be great at.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was gonna ask. So how do you approach them about what you're gonna do?
It's like, I call it dining table conversation. So here's what I say to them is like, here's what your house is worth. I know you don't want to do any work, but this is what it's worth. Now you keep telling me you want top dollar, and we know that based on the comps, top dollar looks like this, and I'll show them examples of homes for the price that they do want to list at.
Right.
If they even need more convincing, we'll go and tour it while it's active on the market, just to make them wake up to the fact that, hey, this is active for a reason. It's still not sold.
Oh yeah.
And here's how good it looks. And you want the same price, and yet you're unwilling to do all this.
Right.
So then what I have to bring them back to is a place called reality, and then bring the tools, which is
Okay.
like, here's the deal. If I were to say I could actually increase this, if you were to invest another, $9,000 up front, would you be willing to do it? And, you got to really have them believe in you. You got to have some conviction about yourself. Most agents know that they could do this, but are fearful to do this because you're right. Your brand is on the line. You are going to get worked if you don't fulfill this promise. And it takes some gusto to lay it all on the table and say, like, I got you, dude. We're going to do this.
Nice.
Just pull the trigger, you know?
Yeah. So when you have that conversation with them, do you go over like every detail of what you're going to do? Like, we're going to put this light fixture here, this one here, this one here, or you say, just trust me, I got this?
If you go into detail, some people will need detail, some people will need confidence, some people will need case study.
Okay.
So I think it's a blend of who you're working with. If it's an engineer, bring some data points, analytics, right? If we were to spend an average of this amount of money, we're seeing about an average of this amount of ROI for this subdivision. Here's my proof, blah, 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 blah. If it's a person that's more of like a CEO or someone that runs their own business, give them case studies.
So
that they can keep at home and look through themselves so they can make their own decision about it because they're a natural decision maker. And then all of it comes back to the main point. With both parties, you're going to need trust. And trust is built up through your conversations, how you communicate, and have your yes mean yes and your no mean no.
Right. Authenticity.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. So that's pretty cool. And then I guess do people ever say like, no, that's crazy?
Dude, I've gotten no'd, but I've always eventually got them to yes. Like as we're getting closer, I'm like, all right. And we're sure we want to skip out on making another 50 grand more for sure.
Right.
I have built my business successful enough, since the beginning of 2022, where this journey started with RealtyWise and my brand and all these mafia and teams and all my offers for the services I provided my clients. Since the beginning of 2022, I've managed to sell close to 40 million in real estate. So I've made a lot of money, and what that's done is it's helped me become my own bank for this.
Nice.
So I have had situations like I had a client in Spurwing. They needed to do all this stuff. They were strapped for cash because they had already just bought a property. And they still needed to sell. It wasn't contingent. They went ahead and just bought, and they're like, I don't have anything else to put into that. So what I did is I fronted the money from the business account, and then we did all the work needed. We sold, and then I made my commission plus
the extra
cost. And then the nice part is you basically get a fantastic product that sells quick because there is no rebuttal. It's not like, well, we got to change the carpet, and I hate this paint color, and blah, 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 blah. Buyers are just coming in like, is this a model home? And that's my slogan. Is like, I turn resales to model homes.
Nice. That's a good one. Yeah. So that really does help you and the client to get what everybody wants. Yeah. And the buyer, too. They're getting a nice home.
And the nice part is, I do it. Done it. Case studies here. Boom, 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 boom. So I'm ready for that objection at the dining table.
Nice. Are you one of the only ones in the area that does that, do you think?
No, there's some big dogs that do it.
Is there? Yeah. But only the big dogs, no small guys.
Only the big dogs, man. I mean,
learn from the best.
I was a small dog when I started doing it. And then I've made my way to that top 1% or whatever. So it just takes knowledge. I think to pull it off, you need massive amount of confidence, and confidence comes from a place of understanding. So if you understand what you're doing and you understand how well you'll do it, you'll be confident to sell it.
That makes sense.
Always. When people aren't confident, for buyers or agents, or like if you're working with an agent and you can tell they're not confident, the reason they're not confident is because they haven't walked the lot. Like Andy Elliott talks about, like, know your inventory, know what cars are coming in. Like, same thing with houses. What just got listed? What just got sold? What did it look like? Did you go inside? Did you go see it? If you don't have that knowledge, you're not going to be able to sell yourself because you don't really know.
Right. That makes total sense. Yeah. I think that's, I don't know. I feel like that's just so crucial, but a lot of people don't search for that. They don't seek it out. So, that's good. So I got a question for you, and that's more pertaining to what I do, which we specialize in siding and decks. And we are like the best contractor in the valley for those things.
Siding and decks, okay.
Yeah, and we have a deck with a frame that we call the Forever frame. It's a frame that will never rot. It's like substantially better than anybody else's frame. And so it's a lifetime deck. But anyways, so if somebody was to install, say, our deck that looks perfect here in 50 years from now, would that, do you think, increase their home value? Or would it just be a pleasure while they stay there?
It's both.
Yeah.
That's the best part. It's a person that adds a deck isn't just going to add a deck and then sell their house. They're adding a deck for their family and for memories and for life. And just remember, guys, the reason we buy the houses we buy and do the things we do as a father, as a mother, as a husband, and as a wife is to enjoy and create memories and experience for our kids and for ourselves. So if a deck's going to do that, do that. And then also know that there's a recoup value in it, knowing that the money you spent, you basically get to enjoy a deck for free.
Yeah.
If you're in an appreciating market. If you're not, it's an even kill market. You may only, let's say a deck, how much is an average deck?
Oh, I guess depends on the size really, but you can get a pretty good sized deck for like 17 to 22.
So like, let's say like $20,000 fair evaluation.
Yeah.
So of the 20,000, if your house never appreciated, the market never went up in your area, which has never been the case, you would only lose about 20% of your investment. Now with appreciation and the things that goes on in the market, you basically get to enjoy an incredible deck for free. So why not do it? Because you're going to recoup it back when you go to sell. Plus, going back to my original story, if I'm working with you and you're an outdoors guy, you're the best candidate for like a 203K loan to which we're going to fund a deck.
Right.
And we got to prove that that valuation makes sense, right? Or you're a perfect guy for someone that's going to go buy a product with a deck. So it's just you're catering to a different audience. But most importantly, I'd say is do it for your family.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah. And too, like, it is enjoyable. It's a space. It's not like sitting on concrete. Like a deck is nice. I love them. But anyways, yeah. And then we also do siding. And we do siding mainly on...
We're only losing $2,000.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I was saying in the evaluation, like that 20%, $2,000 or whatever, of the $20,000 you spend. If you can enjoy a beautiful deck for $2,000 over the next like 5 to 10 years, like who wouldn't do that?
Yeah, absolutely. You spend that on a vacation that has a nice deck.
Dude,
yeah.
That's like Starbucks for like half a year.
Yeah. So yeah, and then we also do siding, and siding typically we do on like 30-year-old homes and older.
Yeah.
Sometimes, which we'll start seeing this a lot more, where we're doing them on like 10-year-old homes because siding has really gotten bad. The installation mainly, but siding has about 113% ROI, so you recoup basically 100% plus 13 on top, so you make money on siding. But the reason that we stick to siding and do it in our own way is because of interior air quality, like you're talking about family. There's tons of people. It causes more lung disease than cigarettes does, and it's mainly from kids who they play around and everything, and there's black mold in a lot of people's walls, and we mitigate that. But if for people that have an older home or anything, siding is almost an essential thing for your health. But yeah, then when it comes to resale value, that siding is going to make you money pretty good. So,
and it makes the whole house look like a new house.
It does. Yeah. It pretty much it almost is a new house when we're done. So because we take it all the way down to the studs and clean it from the inside out. So yeah, but that's pretty cool.
How would you list that as an agent?
How would I,
like, knowing what you provide as your value, what's the best way for an agent to call that out? Like, house has new siding, that sounds like you're underselling it.
Right. Yeah, I would just say, I mean, I don't know exactly. I haven't thought about it in that verbiage, but probably something along the lines of, well, you would want to speak to the much improved air quality of the home. And then also the long-lasting endurance of it as well. But yeah, I'd have to formulate something like that. Well, thanks, Tyler, for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
Of course.
And where can people find you at?
So find me, best place to find me is on Instagram, social media, Tyler Smith Senior. That's it. And it's just SR at the end.
Right on. And we'll link it down in the show notes as well.
It's the whitest name ever. You'll find it.
Yeah, right on. Well, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Awesome, bro. Thank you.